The rain-slicked alley behind the gallery reeked of wet asphalt and regret, and that's where Elias Hawthorne first tasted blood from his own split lip. Andrew Blackwell's fist had connected not out of rage, but precision, like everything the man touched. It was deliberate, carving a bruise that would bloom like one of his abstract oils on canvas. Elias spat copper onto the pavement, staring up at those hands, long-fingered and veined like rivers on a map, the most beautiful he'd ever seen, even as they clenched for another swing. Elias had come to the opening of the Pacific Edge Gallery in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood, expecting the usual snide barbs, the passive-aggressive nods across crowded rooms where artists like them circled each other like sharks in a tank. But Andrew, with his easy smile and that infuriating mop of dark curls, had cornered him near the coat check, whispering accusations of plagiarism that cut deeper than any review. "You think you can steal my light and call it shadow play?" Andrew had hissed, his breath warm against Elias's ear, close enough that Elias could smell the faint citrus of his cologne mixed with turpentine. And then the shove, the stumble into the alley, the punch that wasn't just about the art. It was about years of rivalry festering like an untreated wound. Elias wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, tasting salt and shame. He was 28, built lean from too many nights hunched over a drafting table and not enough sleep, his hazel eyes narrowing against the sting. Seattle's perpetual gray suited him. The city of bridges and baristas, where tech bros rubbed elbows with tattooed poets, and everyone pretended their hearts weren't as overcast as the skies. He'd grown up in a cramped apartment off Capitol Hill, son of a single mom who waitressed at the same diner for 30 years, her calloused hands the only inheritance that mattered. Art had been his escape, his rebellion, photographic installations that captured the fractured beauty of urban decay, sold just enough to keep him from eviction. Andrew, though. God, Andrew. 30, with skin the warm olive of someone whose family had chased the American dream from some sun-baked border town to the rainy Northwest. His hands, Elias couldn't stop fixating on them. Elegant, scarred from years of wielding brushes like weapons, knuckles dusted with faint charcoal smudges even now. They'd shaken at galas, gripped canvases that outsold Elias's work tenfold, and tonight they'd marked him. Elias pushed himself up, leaning against the graffiti-tagged wall, his black wool coat heavy with rain. "Is that all you got, Blackwell?" he rasped, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. It wasn't fear. It was something hotter, more treacherous. Andrew paused, fist half raised, rain dripping from his lashes like tears he wouldn't shed. His dark eyes, almost black in the dim sodium light, flickered. Not with triumph but something raw, unguarded. For a split second the Nemesis mask slipped, revealing the man beneath. The one who'd lost his brother to a overdose 2 years back. The one whose abstracts screamed of grief in broad, slashing strokes. Elias knew because he'd stalked the obituaries, the artist's bios, anything to arm himself against this pull. Andrew's lips twisted into a bitter smile. "You wish it was, Hawthorne. But we both know this isn't over." He turned, those hands flexing as he shoved them into the pockets of his leather jacket, vanishing into the gallery's back door like smoke. Elias slid down the wall, knees to chest, the rain pooling around him. His lip throbbed, but it was the ache in his gut that scared him, the one that whispered he didn't hate Andrew at all. He liked him. Too much. And that was the real betrayal. Inside, the gallery hummed with the clink of wine glasses and murmurs of approval. Elias slipped back in through a side entrance, dodging the crowd clustered around Andrew's centerpiece. A massive triptych called Fractured Tides, waves of blue and indigo crashing against jagged forms that evoked both ocean fury and the fragility of human connection. It was brilliant, as always, and Elias hated how it mirrored his own unpublished series on Seattle's homeless encampments. Intimate, unflinching portraits of lives adrift. He grabbed a plastic cup of cheap Merlot from a passing tray, nursing it in a corner shadowed by hanging sculptures. His best friend Riley, a non-binary sculptor with a buzz cut and a laugh like shattered glass, sidled up, eyeing his swollen lip. "What the hell happened to you? Did you trip over your ego on the way in?" Elias forced a grin, wincing. "Close. Ran into Blackwell's right hook instead." Riley's eyes widened, then narrowed in sympathy. "Again? Elias, this has to stop. You're like a moth to his flame, but the flame's got fists." They'd met in art school at the University of Washington, bonded over late-night critiques and shared disdain for the ivory tower crowd. Riley knew about the rivalry, how Andrew had edged him out for that residency in Portland 5 years ago, how Elias's big break had fizzled when a curator praised Andrew's innovative edge over his derivative grit. But Riley didn't know the rest. The way Elias's sketches always circled back to those hands, idle doodles and margins that he burned before anyone saw. "It's not like that," Elias muttered, but his gaze betrayed him, drifting to where Andrew held court near the bar, gesturing animatedly to a cluster of collectors. His fingers danced in the air, tracing invisible lines, and Elias's throat tightened. Beautiful. Lethal. He drained his cup, the wine sour on his battered tongue. The night blurred into forced small talk, Elias pitching his upcoming show at a lesser venue in Ballard. Echoes of the forgotten, photos of abandoned mills along the Duwamish River, layered with digital overlays of ghostly figures. A few nods, a business card exchanged, but his mind was elsewhere. When the gallery thinned, he found himself outside again, lighting a cigarette under the awning, the cherry glow a small defiance against the downpour. Footsteps splashed behind him. "Hawthorne, we need to talk." Andrew's voice was low, edged with fatigue. Elias turned slowly, exhaling smoke like a barrier. Up close, without the crowd's buffer, Andrew looked wrecked. Ties loosened, shirt untucked, those hands fidgeting with a lighter he didn't use. "Talk? Or you here to finish what you started?" Andrew's jaw clenched, but he didn't swing. Instead, he stepped closer, invading Elias's space, the heat of him cutting through the chill. That punch. It wasn't about the show. Or the plagiarism bullshit. You get under my skin, always have. Elias's heart stuttered, the cigarette forgotten between his fingers. Feelings mutual, asshole. But his voice cracked and Andrew heard it, the vulnerability, the lie. They stood there, rain drumming on the awning like an impatient audience, until Andrew's hand, God, that hand, reached out not to strike, but to brush rain from Elias's collar. The touch lingered a beat too long, electric, and Elias jerked back as if burned. "Don't." Andrew's eyes darkened, hurt flashing before the walls slammed up. "Fine. Keep hating me. It's easier." He walked away, vanishing into the night, leaving Elias with the ghost of that touch and a question he couldn't shake. What if the hate was just fear in disguise? The next morning, Elias woke to the relentless patter against his loft window in Belltown, head pounding from wine and want. His studio was a chaos of prints drying on lines strung like laundry, the air thick with fixer and regret. He brewed coffee black as his mood, scrolling through emails. A rejection from a grant panel, a lukewarm invite to a group show, and buried in spam a message from Andrew. "Meet me at the locks at noon. No fists. Just truth." Elias stared at the screen, pulse racing. The Ballard locks, where salmon fought upstream, a place of migration and memory. His mom used to take him there as a kid, watching fish ladder leaps, whispering that persistence was the only magic worth believing in. He shouldn't go. It was a trap, another layer in their endless game. But those hands. He was already pulling on his jacket. The drive through slick streets took 20 minutes, wipers slapping rhythm like a metronome to his doubts. He parked near the visitor center, the air sharp with salt and pine. Tourists milled about, feeding gulls, oblivious to the storm brewing in Elias's chest. Andrew was there, on a bench overlooking the spillway, sketchpad balanced on his knee. Not painting, just drawing, pencil flying in swift, sure strokes. Elias approached, hands shoved deep in pockets. "This better be good. I skipped a deadline for this." Andrew looked up, no smirk, just quiet intensity. He flipped the pad toward Elias. A rough sketch of the alley last night, not violent but tender. The rain, the lean against the wall, Elias's face captured in lines of quiet defiance. "I don't hate you," Andrew said simply. "I envy you. Your work sees people. Mine's just noise." Elias sank onto the bench, the sketch burning between them. "Bullshit. Your tides? They drown me every time." He meant the paintings, but it came out wrong, too personal, laced with the pull he'd buried for years. Andrew's fingers tightened on the pencil, veins standing out like cords. Elias's eyes dropped there, mesmerized, and Andrew noticed. A flush crept up his neck. What is it with you and my hands? You've been staring since that first critique in school. Elias swallowed, the truth clawing up. There. Perfect. Like they could fix anything. Or break it. He laughed, bitter. Like you. Silence stretched, broken only by the rush of water. Then Andrew set the pad aside, his hand deliberate, unhurried, covering Elias's on the bench. Warm, calloused, alive. Maybe I want to fix something. With you. The touch ignited a spark to dry tinder, and Elias didn't pull away. Not this time. They sat like that, hands entwined as the locks churned below, fish leaping against the current. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning, fragile as the sketches between them. Weeks blurred into a tentative truce, laced with late-night texts and stolen coffees at dive shops in Pioneer Square. Elias found himself lingering at Andrew's studio in Georgetown, a converted warehouse redolent of oil paint and espresso. Andrew worked with a focus that bordered on obsession, those hands birthing chaos into form. Broad sweeps for tempests, delicate flicks for hidden calms. Elias would perch on a stool, camera in lap, snapping candids he swore he'd delete but never did. You're distracting, Andrew would grumble, but his eyes softened, inviting the chaos. One evening, as dusk painted the space in bruised purples, Andrew paused mid-stroke, wiping paint from his fingers on a rag. Show me something real. Not the polished prints, the raw stuff. Elias hesitated, then pulled up files on his phone. Outtakes from echoes, faces of the forgotten. Eyes hollow with stories untold. Andrew scrolled, silent, his thumb brushing Elias's as he zoomed in. This is you, he murmured, seeing the ache no one else bothers with. The praise landed like sunlight after storm, warming cracks Elias had sealed shut. He leaned in, emboldened, tracing the paint smear on Andrew's wrist. And this is you, messy, alive. Their lips met then, tentative, tasting of turpentine and truth. Andrew's hands framed Elias's face, gentle, thumb stroking jawlines like cherished canvases. It was revelation. The Nemesis undone, replaced by hunger. But Seattle's rains brought floods, and so did their past. The betrayal hit during preparations for a joint exhibit at the Fry Art Museum. Elias's photos paired with Andrew's abstracts, a risky fusion pitched as converging currents. Elias had shared concepts over whiskey-fueled nights, vulnerable sketches of overlaying his human portraits onto Andrew's waves. It'll show the tide's toll on souls, he'd said, heart on sleeve. Then, a week before install, Elias overheard whispers at a pre-show mixer. Andrew's solo pitch to the curator, claiming the overlays as his evolution. No mention of collaboration. Elias confronted him in the museum's loading dock, crates of framed work looming like accusations. You took it. My idea, my vulnerability. You twisted it into your spotlight. Andrew's face crumpled, hands raised in plea. It was instinct, Elias. I panicked, thought it'd secure us both. I was going to credit you, I swear. Liar. The word cracked like thunder. Elias shoved him hard, the old alley rage resurfacing. You're still the thief. Always will be. He stormed out, rain lashing his face, the betrayal a knife twist deeper than any punch. Days dissolved into isolation. Elias holed up in his loft, deleting files, shredding contact prints. Riley dragged him to bars in Capitol Hill, where drag queens lip-synced heartbreak anthems, but the numbness clung. He dreamed of those hands, not violent but reaching, always just out of grasp. Waking to empty sheets, he'd trace his own palms, inadequate shadows. Andrew's texts piled up. Let me explain. Please. Then voicemails, voice rough with unshed tears. I fucked up because I'm scared. Scared you'll see me, the broken parts, and walk. Elias listened in the dark, thumb hovering over delete, but played them again, each word a hook in his resolve. The exhibit opened without him. Elias watched from across the street, hidden in the crowd's fringe, heart splintering as patrons raved over the pieces, his soul's adrift in Andrew's seas, uncredited ghosts. Andrew stood alone amid the throng, eyes scanning desperately, those hands clasped tight as if to hold himself together. When their gazes locked through plate glass, Andrew's mask shattered. He mouthed, I'm sorry, raw, pleading. Elias turned away, but the pull dragged him back. Later, as the gallery emptied, he slipped inside, the echo of heels on marble his only company. Andrew was dismantling a panel, back turned, shoulders slumped. "You came," he whispered, not turning. "To end this." Elias's voice wavered. "But I can't. Not without knowing why it hurts so much." Andrew faced him, paint-flecked hands trembling. "Because I love you, idiot. And I ruined it before it started." The confession hung, electric, and Elias crossed the space in 3 strides, crashing into him. Fists in shirts, lips bruising, it was war and worship. Teeth-nipping apologies, fingers digging promises. They made love that night in Andrew's studio, on a dropcloth stained with years of creation, bodies mapping the terrain they'd only sketched before. Andrew's hands roamed reverent, over scars from childhood falls, the curve of Elias's spine, whispering devotions against skin. Elias arched into it, finally touching back, tracing the veins that had haunted him, committing them to memory beyond dreams. Dawn found them tangled, rain easing to mist outside. "We'll redo the show," Andrew murmured, fingers laced with Elias's. "Your name first. Always." Elias nodded, throat tight. No more stealing. No more fighting alone. But peace was fleeting in a city of shifting tides. Months later, as autumn leaves choked the gutters, Andrew's past resurfaced. Not as ghost but flesh. His ex Javier, a sculptor from their shared undergrad days, blew into Seattle like a Sirocco, all charm and old wounds. Javier, with his easy laugh and shared history, crashed at Andrew's studio just for a week, but lingered, hands on hips, eyes lingering too long. Elias smelled the shift. Andrew's late nights finishing commissions, the faint cologne on collars that wasn't his. Paranoia? Or pattern? He confronted Riley over faux in the International District, steam curling like doubts. "He's pulling away. Like he did before." Riley slurped noodles, blunt as ever. "Or you're projecting your fears. Talk to him, Elias, before it becomes another alley brawl." But talking fractured. One night, Elias arrived unannounced. He'd copied in a flush of trust, now feeling like intrusion. Laughter spilled from the studio door, Javier's rich and teasing. Inside, they stood close over a clay maquette, Javier's hand guiding Andrew's on the tool, intimate as lovers. Elias froze, the scene a gut punch. "You son of a bitch." The door slammed behind him. Andrew spun, clay-dusted, hands up. "Elias, it's nothing. Javier's helping with the form." "Helping?" Elias's laugh was hollow. "Like you helped with my ideas? History repeats, huh?" Javier backed away, murmuring excuses, but the damage bloomed. Andrew's eyes pleaded, but Elias saw only betrayal's echo. The theft, the punch, now this. "I trusted you," he whispered, voice breaking. "With everything." Andrew stepped forward, hands outstretched, the beautiful, treacherous hands. "Then trust me now. Javier's a friend. You're my everything." But Elias recoiled, storming into the night, hail mixing with tears. He drove aimlessly, past the locks where it began, the Space Needle's glow mocking his unraveling. At his loft he packed a duffel, essentials, escape. A text from Andrew: "Don't do this. We can fix it." "Some things break irreparably," Elias replied, then blocked the number. He crashed at Riley's in Queen Anne, the hill's steep streets a metaphor for his plummet. Days bled into weeks. He threw himself into solo work, a new series on fractured reflections, mirrors shattered by human folly. It sold, critically acclaimed, but hollow victories. Andrew didn't chase. Instead, packages arrived. Sketches of their hands intertwined, letters scrawled in looping script. "I see now how my fears make monsters. Forgive me, or at least let me be your shadow." Elias burned one, kept the rest, fingers tracing the ink like braille for absolution. Winter gripped Seattle, Christmas lights twinkling against black skies. Elias wandered Pike Place, the market's bustle a balm, when he spotted Andrew across the stalls, thinner, eyes hollow, selling small oils to tourists. Their gazes met, and Andrew's hand lifted in tentative wave, palm open, vulnerable. Elias crossed the wet cobblestones, heart hammering. "You look like hell." Andrew's smile was ghost-thin. Missed you. The honesty cracked him. I can't just forget. Then don't. Remember the good. Build on it. Andrew's hand extended, not to touch but offer. A tiny painting, their profiles in profile, waves merging below. For when you're ready. Elias took it, fingers brushing, the spark undimmed. Maybe soon. Spring thawed the impasse. Elias unblocked the number. Texts evolving from stilted to stories. Andrew's new solo in Tacoma, Elias's Grant win. They met neutral. At the locks again, fish leaping triumphant. Conversation flowed, cautious, then deep. Andrew confessing Javier's flirt as echo of his own insecurities. Elias admitting his jealousy as fear of loss. I thought you'd leave, Andrew said, voice low. Like everyone does. Elias cupped his face, thumbs on cheekbones. Not if you keep those hands honest. Laughter bubbled, sealing the pact. They walked the paths, hands swinging, linking naturally. Back at the studio, lovemaking was reclamation. Slow, exploratory. Andrew's fingers painting paths of fire. Elias's mapping home. But climax loomed in summer's heat. A national residency in Marfa, Texas. Arid isolation for artists to confront cores. Both shortlisted, only one spot. The call came, Andrew's name. Elias's followed with regrets. Rage simmered, old wounds reopening. Of course it's you. He spat over dinner at a waterfront bistro, forks clattering. The golden boy, hands that win everything. Andrew's face fell. Apply again. It's not. Zero-sum, Andrew. Always has been. Elias stood, chair scraping. Go chase your desert dreams. I'll stay in the rain. Andrew caught his wrist, grip firm. Don't make me choose between you and this. I need both. You already did. Elias wrenched free, fleeing to the ferry terminal, salt wind whipping accusations. Months in Marfa stretched Andrew thin, vast skies mirroring inner voids. Letters arrived, vivid. Sun-baked clays, starlit confessions. Your absence is a drought. Elias read them in his dim loft, fingers itching to reply, but pride damned the flow. Riley intervened, staging an intervention over beers at the Tractor Tavern. You're punishing him for succeeding. And yourself for loving him. The truth stung. Elias flew to Texas unannounced, rental car kicking dust across plains to the Chinati Foundation. Andrew was in a barn studio, hands buried in sculpture, wire and stone, forms twisting like hearts in flux. Elias. Andrew rose, dust-caked, eyes wide. I came to fight. Or fuck. Or both. Elias closed the distance, kissing him fierce, dust and desire mingling. They talked through nights under infinite stars, Andrew's hands gesturing horizons. The wind's empty without you. Then share it. Elias proposed collaboration, Elias's photos of Marfa's ghosts, Andrew's forms anchoring them. The residency extended tandem invites. Fall returned them to Seattle transformed. Joint show at Sam, tides and anchors, souls and seas entwined. Opening night, hands linked in the crowd. They toasted not victory but survival. Yet humanity's arc bends toward light through shadow. 2 years on, Andrew's diagnosis came quiet. Early lymphoma caught in routine scans. Those hands, once weapons and wonders, now trembled signing consents. Elias held vigil in Swedish medical's sterile glow. Fingers laced tight. We'll fight, he vowed, kissing knuckles. Andrew smiled, weak but wicked. With these, we'd win any war. Chemo blurred seasons but love sharpened them. Nights of broth and bat TV, mornings of sunlight on sheets. Andrew painted miniatures, hands defiant. Elias photographing the grace in frailty. Remission whispered in spring, scans clean as fresh canvas. They honeymooned in the San Juans, cabins on ferried isles, hands exploring without haste. Aging etched them gently. Elias's galleries in Portland, Andrew's retrospectives. Grandkids from Riley's eventual family, tiny fingers tracing their scars. In twilight years on a porch in Bainbridge, overlooking the sound, Andrew's hand, wrinkled, wise, found Elias's. Best nemesis I ever had. Elias leaned in, breath mingling. Best love. They watch tides turn hands eternal.